So we're a little over 2 months away from college football season actually kicking off. August 24th cannot get here fast enough. So I'm going to go ahead and start ranking all the quarterbacks in each conference. We got SEC today. 15 out of the 16 SEC teams have named their QB1. Vanderbilt has not, but from what I've been reading, I know who their starting quarterback is going to be, so let's rank them. And this ranking is going to be mostly what they've done so far in their careers. It's not really going to be projection based, although some quarterbacks have barely touched the field, so some of that is going to be in here, but for the most part, I'm going to keep it for what they've done so far. Number 16, Brock Vandagriff at Kentucky, the new quarterback at Kentucky, transferred from Georgia this offseason. He was at Georgia 3 years, if you can believe that. So this is his 4th year of college football. Did not get much playing time behind Stetson Bennett and Carson Beck this past season. Had 2 passing touchdowns total. And I think he's going to be really good at Kentucky, though. He's got some weapons in Dane Key. Mark Stoops should be a really good coach for him. And I'm excited to see what he does, but I can't rank him any higher based on what he's already done. At number 15, I have Taylon Green at Arkansas, another transfer. He transferred from Boise State and did not have the best 2023 campaign, had a really good 2022 campaign at Boise State, and he had 11 touchdowns passing this past season with 9 interceptions, so not very good, but on the ground, he is a beast. He is so fast, 450 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns. Boise State did win the Mountain West title, so that should go into a little bit of your perception when you think about Taylon Green, and he was a big part of that. So hopefully Bobby Petrino can work on his arm a little bit because his passing game is not a strength so far, but we'll see if Bobby Petrino can bring it out of him. At number 14, Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma. Now this could be very low for some people, and I understand that. He has so much potential, and but I'm not trying to project his potential. I'm not trying to project him or what he does this season. Right now, he has not shown me a lot, and he's really not supposed to. He's a young quarterback, only started in the Arizona bowl game and the BYU game. In the Arizona game, he had some really bright spots, but also some really bad throws, some really boneheaded plays, but you expect that as a young quarterback, and I think he will be really good. It was a very high recruit, so this is not me projecting or anything because I think he will be a beast, but right now he's number 14. Number 13, Lenora Sellers at South Carolina. Goggles, if you want to call him that. Man, people are going to know this kid. They really are. He has not done a lot in college football level. He's 4 for 4. I think 86 yards and 2 touchdowns in a game against Vanderbilt. That's his stat line for last season. That's everything you have on this guy so far. So I can't really rank him too high. But man, the potential is there, just like with Jackson Arnold. But I'm a really big fan of Lenora Sellers. I'm really excited for 2024. Number 12, Blake Shapen, the new quarterback at Mississippi State, a transfer from Baylor. Last season was horrible at Baylor. They went 3-9, but Shapen didn't have the worst stats. 2,200 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. In 2022, he had 16 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So he is turnover prone and has not showed me a lot in his years in college football so far. Maybe Jeff Lebby can turn it around. At number 11, Peyton Thorne at Auburn. Auburn has had a great offseason with the transfer portal, with recruiting. They have a star freshman in Cam Coleman at wide receiver. They picked up Keandre Lambert-Smith from Penn State at receiver, and quarterback is really their biggest question. If Peyton Thorne can be a good quarterback and go back to his Michigan State days where he had 20 passing touchdowns, a little under 10 interceptions, that would be awesome for Auburn. They would have a great season. But last year, he was not great. He was very inconsistent, had his best games against the best 2 teams in the conference, Georgia and Alabama. And he's just very inconsistent. But if they can get the right version of Peyton Thorne, Auburn can have a really good season. At number 10, Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. And this is where my rankings can get a little bit tricky. I'm trying not to project. I'm trying not to base these rankings off potential. But Nico has so much potential. He is the guy there at Tennessee. And so I got him at 10. It is his year for Tennessee. He has the keys this season. And Tennessee has playoff hopes. They really do. He has only gotten time in that bowl game against Iowa where they won 35-0, and he had a pretty good game against them. Had some pretty good time against Vanderbilt, but yeah, he is number 10 and has the potential to be top 3 when I do this ranking again after the season. Number 9, Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. Again, just like Nico, has not had a lot of time. He's had more time than Nico, and so I have him at number 9. He had a great bowl game against Wisconsin, over 400 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Had a pretty good game against Georgia in the SEC championship in 2022. We know him as the gunslinger, and if he can be that this season, he has a ton of weapons. LSU can go very far. At number 8, I have Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt. This is going to surprise some people, and I'm just kind of guessing that he's going to be the starting quarterback because he is so good. He is battling with Nate Johnson, the Utah transfer. But I think Diego Pavia will get it. I think Lee will pick him to be the starter because he was so good at New Mexico State. He came from New Mexico State, transferred this offseason, had 26 touchdowns there, 9 interceptions, 3,000 passing yards, over 1,000 rushing yards, and 7 touchdowns on the ground. And I think he's going to be really good at Vanderbilt. But I know it's Vanderbilt. I know it is. They're not going to win very many games. But as of right now, I think he's a top 8 quarterback in the SEC. Number 7, Connor Wigman at Texas A&M. Connor Wigman's biggest problem so far at the college football level has been being injury prone. 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions over the course of 2 years in which he played 9 games total. He is so efficient when he's in. He's smart. He's a really good decision maker. And he did have Bobby Petrino as his offensive coordinator, which mostly Jimbo Fisher was his offensive coordinator. Now he has Mike Elko as a head coach and Colin Klein as his offensive coordinator, a former great quarterback who I think can teach Connor Wigman a lot. Number 6, Graham Mertz at Florida. Last year, I think I ranked Graham Mertz the last quarterback in the SEC, the worst quarterback in the SEC when I was doing these rankings last year. And who would have thought he'd be cracking the top 6 in my ranking this year? He was so good last year. 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, no turnover issues whatsoever, had 4 rushing touchdowns as well. And he got hurt at the very end of the season. But man, he had a really good season for Florida, even though they didn't make a bowl game. But he was very good, very much better than I ever thought he would be, obviously. This year, Florida has the toughest schedule by far. They're playing an NFL schedule this year. And I think the bad thing is I think they're going to be better than last year by far because Graham Mertz is that good. They have weapons. They have a really good defense. But I don't think the record will show it, and I think Florida will have a worse record than last year and be a better team, if that makes sense. Talking about surprises, number 5 is Brady Cook at Missouri. Over 3,300 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He also had 8 touchdowns on the ground. He was just so good for Missouri last year. 11 wins for that team, and they're looking for even more this season. They're looking for playoff hopes. I mean, they got a national championship on their mind. And that team is good. They have the best wide receiver in the country in Luther Burden for Brady Cook to throw it to, and he could have an even better season in 2024. At number 4, I have Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. Had such a good season in 2023. 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, almost 3,000 passing yards, 400 more on the ground, and 7 more rushing touchdowns on the ground. He had just a great 2023 season. The only knock I have on Jackson Dart is in the big games. Can he get it done? The Alabama game, he struggled. The Georgia game, he struggled. The LSU game, he had the game of his life, but LSU's defense was horrible. Had a great game in the bowl game against Penn State, and Ole Miss has so many weapons. He has so many weapons to throw it to. Pre-Scorn, Trey Harris. He has Juice Wells coming over. It's just... he has so many weapons, and Ole Miss can do a lot, especially with him at quarterback. At number 3, I have Jalen Milroe at Alabama. Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart are interchangeable, in my opinion. I could have went with either, but in my opinion, I would take Jalen Milroe right now in a very intense, pressure-filled situation. I would take Jalen Milroe as my quarterback over Jackson Dart. As of right now. I know in big games last year, Jalen Milroe made some mistakes in the Texas game. We all remember the Texas game, some horrible interceptions in that one. In the Michigan game, in the playoffs, he had that very, very costly fumble in the, I think it was late fourth or early fourth quarter, something like that. But he had a very costly mistake that Michigan turned the momentum around and ended up winning the game. But Jalen Milroe, I think, is a prime candidate for the Heisman this season. The offense under Kalen DeBoer is going to be awesome. They have weapons, as always. They're Alabama. But Jalen Milroe on his legs can also run it up. He had 12 rushing touchdowns this past season, almost 500 rushing touchdowns, and had a pretty good season throwing the ball. He really did. He can launch it. he can launch it. Even when he was struggling with his mid-range and accuracy in short yardage situations, he could always launch it. Even in the Texas game when he struggled so much, he had several deep balls that were beautiful. But this season, I do have him as the number 3 quarterback in the SEC, and I would not be surprised if he finished higher. At number 2, Quinn Ewers at Texas. Ewers had such a good season in 2023, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, also 5 rushing touchdowns. He was really good, over 3,200 passing yards this past season. He also struggles with injuries, but man, if he can stay healthy, Texas they have national championship hopes, not playoff hopes anymore. They did that last season. They need to win some games in the playoffs. They are looking for a national championship for the first time since 2005. And I think they can do it. I really do. They have the talent to do it. They have the quarterback to do it. They have the coach to do it. I feel like they have the coach to win a national championship. And this is Quinn Ewers' last year because he's going to be a first-round pick, maybe a top 10 pick. That's how good he's going to be this season, and I'm super excited for Quinn Ewers. But at number 1, Carson Beck at Georgia. Shouldn't be a surprise. Almost 4,000 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I believe 5 more on the ground as well. Carson Beck was amazing this past season. Before the season, I was always talking about how he's never been in high-pressure situations or in big games. And every game Georgia plays in, their opponent is going to give them the best game they can. So he'll be in a lot of those situations, and he stepped up in pretty much every one of them. Pretty much every one of them. He was great in the Ole Miss game. He was really good in the Tennessee game, the Florida game, the Missouri game. He was always good in those games. The only game you can knock him for is that Alabama game. And he didn't make a lot of mistakes. He fumbled the ball on a weird reverse play. But as far as throwing the ball and his IQ and stuff, he is really good. And I think he's the best quarterback in college football. And I think he'll be the first quarterback taken off the draft board next season. But yeah, guys, that is my ranking of all 16 starting SEC quarterbacks. I know my criteria was a little bit off to some quarterbacks and not the others. I tried to keep it as consistent as possible, but it's hard, man. There's so many good quarterbacks that have not seen the field with so much potential. And I try to keep it as consistent as possible. Comment what you disagree with. I know there's a lot to disagree with in this video. Follow us on TikTok at 3&OUT CFB, on Twitter at 3&OUT_CFB. But I appreciate y'all for watching.